Everyone, please join us. We're going to begin right now. If you have been here for the past few weeks, then you know that we've been trying to explore a topic called the depths of love. And I just want to continue and kind of get some closure on that idea and use it as a way of segueing into another topic. And I really believe that these two topics are interconnected. And if you give me some time, I'll show you how. To recap, Rav Dessler was telling us that he was sharing with us that the greatest expression of godliness is one's desire to give. That the more you and I find ourselves in a position where we're able to give to others, the more aligned we are with godliness. And he says that when you or I are in a space where we're taking, right? The taking itself is something that distances one from God. The taking is something that distorts man's ability to connect to God. And these two drives are intrinsic in everything that is alive on this planet. All things intrinsically want to give or want to take. And the question is, where do you see yourselves? Where do you fall in that pendulum of being a giver and a taker? We spoke about the idea that, if that in fact is true, that there are these two systems of giving and taking, and the giving part of me wants to align itself with the highest parts of my being, my soul, which connects to God, then that part of me is something that I want to be more involved in. And if the part of me that is involved in taking is something that distances myself from God, distances my soul from God, then I want to avoid being connected to that part of who I am. And I want to work on being involved in that part of me that's constantly giving. And Rav Dessler points out that this concept of giving and taking, right, breaks down when you think about it in the terms of the way economics is set up in the world today. Thank you so much. Perfect. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehakol nehiya bidbaro. Oh, thank you, Hashem. Okay. He points out like this: the whole purpose of a capitalistic system is to give people the opportunity to make money. And the system of monetary systems today are based on a simple premise: I'm going to exchange goods for money. And therefore, when I am in the process of creating that exchange, the purpose of that interaction is for me to take from you. I'm giving you something, and the reason why I'm giving it to you is because I want something from you. What do I want? I want the green. I want the cash. Or today, we prefer Bitcoin, right? So you have a reality where the whole entire monetary system is designed not to turn you into a lover of humanity, but into a taker. And that act of taking, even in business, can be something that distances one from his true mission, to connect to God, to be more God-like. God is a giver, the ultimate giver. Man is a giver, okay? Remember, God creates a world which has been perfectly designed to give you everything that you need. The oceans are in the perfect distance from the sun. The sun heats up the oceans just enough so that the water becomes vapor. The vapor gets lifted up. It's lighter than gravity. The earth is spinning. The wind pushes this vapor into the clouds. The clouds carry the vapor over the earth. They hit the mountains. And now you have water raining down on the unfertile or fertile soil that now has the life-giving water to promote life. This is not an accident. Everything that God does is an act of giving. There is no taking for God. To be a God, to be Hashem, to be Borei Olam means that there's nothing you would give him. When we say even giving Hashem nachat ruach, that's not even true. You cannot give even Hashem nachat ruach. To say that you could give something to Hashem means that Hashem is lacking in something. There's nothing lacking in him. He is the ultimate expression of what it means to give unconditionally, altruistically. He wants absolutely nothing in return. He cannot receive anything in return. This is why he's Borei Olam. This is why he's God. And therefore, for you and I, if you and I are supposed to emulate God, then we want to put ourselves into a position where we can be the ultimate givers. It's when we are in that position of giving in the most meaningful way that I believe we align with our souls and we experience something called simcha. We experience something called happiness. Now, in order to answer the question of Maaseh and Matan, right? I'm not sure if I mentioned it last week. Did I mention last week the story of Alexander the Great? So Rav Dessler makes this point where he says that he quotes a midrash, and Alexander the Great ends up going on this long journey, and he travels to the east and to the far east, and he ends up in conquering this small little town somewhere in the far east, maybe somewhere close to India, and he ends up watching over a court case. And the court case is a case of a man who sold a piece of property to his friend. His friend purchased the property, okay, everything went fine, but he was doing some excavations on the property and found a treasure chest of gold. And he wanted to return the gold to his friend. Because he said, I purchased the land, you clearly didn't know it was there. If you would have known it was there, you would have charged me more money. I want to return this gold to you. So the guy who sold the property said, listen, I had no idea the gold was there. It's fair and square, it's yours, it doesn't belong to me. So, they're fighting back and forth. And the judge, who's presiding over the case says, you know what, do you have a son? Yes. Do you have a daughter? Amazing. Let them get married and give them the gold and the land as a gift. And this way, both of you have it, right? So Alexander the Great is listening to this. He's like, this is the stupidest case ever. He's like, if I was the judge in this case, you know what I would have done? I would have killed both of them and I would have taken the gold and the land, right? Now, obviously the Midrash is telling you a cute story, right? I don't know if it really actually happened, but if it did or it didn't, doesn't really matter. What's the lesson? The lesson is like this. When we look at the West, which is what Alexander the Great represents, right? When he represents the West, right? Western values is all about making money. And therefore, when I'm starting my store, my brand, how do I win that game? How do I win the capitalistic system? It's very simple. I got to create a product that is super awesome, that undermines everybody else. And if I could figure out a cute way of selling my stuff, okay, cheap enough, I have some gimmick to get people in, eventually my job is to get other people to close their shops. The only way I can succeed is if I take someone else's business away. That's just the way it works in capitalism. It forces everyone to be at the top of their game. But if I get really good at it, what do? I got a franchise. It's not enough for me to be successful in New York. I got to figure out a way of expanding. So what do? I say, you know what? It's all a numbers game. So if I could figure out how to buy these products the cheapest, right, then I could undercut everybody else and close everybody else's businesses. So what do? I open up something called Costco. Right? I find the biggest pieces of property, okay? I buy the most bulk of any product than anyone else in America, and I could sell it cheaper than anyone else in America and still make money, undercutting everybody else, forcing all small businesses to close. This is what's been happening in America the last 30 years, okay? And what's happening is you have small families losing their businesses. Why? Because the big fish, you can't compete with the big fish. It's impossible. When you create a system that's destructive, okay, even though Chachamim want you to live, they want you to make money, they want you to be in a position where you can go ahead and earn, right? But the question is, why are we doing it? If we're creating a society that's designed, a system that's designed to take from others, right? We don't create a society where we can actually give back to humanity, we're doing something wrong. And therefore, the taking for the sake of taking is destructive. And that aspect of business is bad and wrong. However, if you're taking for the sake of giving, growing, feeding, caring, developing, that's something else. But all too often, we get so greedy in that place of wanting to make money that we're really focusing more on the taking than we are on the giving. Okay, this is why all too often people who are making loads of money feel so miserable with their reality that they have to engage in buying all sorts of objects and spending so much time and doing frivolous things to kind of like compensate for their inability to align with their soul's mission, which is to give. Every single person here has a drive to give. Remember that to give is to love. Every person here wants to be loved, and every person wants to love. It goes both ways. But it's very difficult to feel that way when your whole entire life is a life that is focused on what you can take from the system and not what you can give back to the system. And so you find moments of respite when you're going out and you're volunteering and you're doing nice things and you're giving your charity and so on and so forth, but that's not your reality. The reality is, are you someone that is still focused on being in that space of taking or giving? If the impulse is just to take, you cannot be b'simcha, you cannot live in a reality of happiness. If your impulse is to take because you want to give back, that is a whole different reality. Now, I think that this is a great segue because in the last few weeks we spoke about this idea of love. I spoke about it in the context of marriage. You know, one of the most difficult things, one of the most challenging things that I have to do is when I meet with couples that are getting married, is to try to impart this idea that two people, when they first get engaged, are not truly in love. And they often, struggle with this idea because, well, how could you tell me what I am or what I'm not? Of course we're in love. I'm like, well, you don't really love each other because if you truly would love each other, you wouldn't want to subjugate the other person to your own insanity. And the real reason why the two of you are here today is simply because you selfishly believe that you're going to benefit from being in this relationship. That's a very difficult concept to kind of swallow, simply because when we are in a relationship, we often use the emotional part of our brains and the cerebral part of our brains very quickly interchangeably. But if you think about the person that you're with and you're being super cerebral, you're being super honest, intellectual about what you're in, you're there because you believe you're going to benefit from being in that relationship. No one should be in a relationship that they feel they are not benefiting from. It's okay to be in a relationship where you feel like you're going to get from. The problem is that when you build a marriage like that marriages end up failing. A marriage cannot be built on two people taking from another. It can only be built on the desire for each of those people to give unconditionally to the other. Unconditional giving is dangerous until the commitment is there. It's interesting if you think about it like this. You know what people say when they get engaged? Like, will you marry me? And then they say those other three words, you know what I'm talking about? I love you, right? Now let's break down those words, right? I, of course, it's about me, right? You start the sentence with me. Love is what I need. I need me. I love. Yeah, that's all about me. You, I love you, but it's conditional, the you. The you is very much dependent on where you're at right now. Because I could exchange you, I can trade you, if I find somebody else who does better at whatever else that you're supposed to be doing for me. Right? In Hebrew, when you're under the chuppah and you're going to be giving the ring or receiving the ring, what does that gentleman say? He says, Hare at. He doesn't say, Ani mikudeshet. He says, Hare at, right? He talks about her. He talks about the other first. We say, Baruch atah Hashem. He doesn't say, Ani Baruch. It's a weird way of speaking in English. And it sounds like a simple, silly thing, but when you constantly start with the I's, you're only thinking and reinforcing the idea that you're thinking about what you can take from and not what you can give to. Right? And therefore, even in English, a simple thing like I love you, which is so innocent and so seemingly beautiful, what may seem like it's beautiful, is really something that is twisted and perverted. No, it's not. It's not twisted and perverted. It just needs a little bit more finessing. Right? Maybe behold, it is you that I love, is better than I love you. And maybe in the old, Shakespearean English, the way in which they expressed love was not just poetic, but was more of a deeper expression of what true love really is, right? And now we use these words all the time, like I love, I love, I love, I love, and we don't really truly appreciate what that is. And if we don't fully appreciate what love is, we end up getting what I call a superficial pleasure, a superficial love. And no one here wants anything superficial, not out of their relationships, certainly not out of their relationships. Because if you get superficial love, you end up getting a superficial marriage, superficial marriages, superficial children, and you have a whole entire world of superficiality. We say in the month of Adar, which is tonight is the first night that is not Rosh Chodesh, right? So you have Adar, Mishnichlas Adar, Ma'avim be Simcha, right? We increase our joy, okay? So the question is, how does one attain Simcha? In the context of our conversation of love. Because I believe simcha and love are interconnected, okay? And you'll see why, hopefully, by the end of the tonight. How does one able to go ahead and add joy at a time of so much grief and suffering? How do you do that? What is simcha? What is it? Aren't we all aiming for that, ultimately? We all want to be happy here. Does anyone here want to be depressed? You want to be depressed? Okay, good. No one wants to be depressed. Okay, so look at number 3. He says that true simcha can be attained only in 3 conditions. Right? Only if these three conditions are met. And those conditions can be only met through the observance of Torah mitzvot. Ready? The action must be perfect. That's number one. Number two, the person performing the action must have perfect intentions. Harmful motives sadden the soul, which comes from an elevated source. The soul comes from an elevated source. And three is joy results from achieving the purpose of the deed. Okay, it sounds super technical. Let's break it down. Simcha la'ish, Mishlei says, a man has happiness through the response of his mouth. Simcha la'ish b'ma'aneh piv. What does that mean? What does King Solomon, what is the Solomonic wisdom of this particular proverb trying to impart to us? What's that? It's what we choose. And therefore, so much of our happiness is expression of choice. Well, what's the choice we all could make? First of all, is everyone aware that the greatest faculty of being a human being is the faculty of choice? The ability to choose how you're feeling and thinking is what it means to be a true human being. And today in the West, we're selling this idea that your emotions define who you are and not your thoughts. Okay? But Shlomo Melech says there's no greater happiness than what comes out of your mouth, because you're going to choose what you say. And then this other part, which I love, Rabbi Tov Matov, right? How good is a word timed right? You know that when you have a situation, you say that one stinging word and fits in perfectly. That's what he says. So awesome. So you have this idea that happiness comes through choice. Okay, look at Rav Elyasha Sandler. He says, what does Mishlei mean? The Talmud Rabbi Yerushalayim explains a person who merits to have a tongue that is clean and pure will merit the attribute of happiness. Right? The Shem Shmuel, Simcha reveals that which is concealed in the heart. Rav Simcha Banim says, Simcha provides the means to escape from all difficulties. And Eicha Rabbah says, if someone tells you that non-Jews have wisdom, believe him. Let's go back for a second. So, what is Simcha then? Okay, if Simcha is about how does Simcha reveal my true intentions? Yeah.
Because this said that real Simcha is doing following Torah and mitzvot with perfect intention. That brings you joy. So if you do that and you obtain joy.
So when awesome. So when you have let's say for example, you have your kids doing something, right? And when a kid is doing something, when they're happy or when they're unhappy. And when they're unhappy, they don't really enjoy doing it. You got to go ahead. I want you to wash the floors. You want to add something? Go for it.
When someone is doing something wrong, you can tell that they're actually not happy deep down.
Right.
You can tell that in their face.
Sinner! I can see it on your face. Right? You frowning? You're doing something wrong. Now, what's interesting is that in the heat of the moment, it feels good. Right? But right afterwards, it's depressing. What did I do? Why did I do that? I was being impulsive. What a mistake. We all know of circumstances we find ourselves in that we're like, I can't believe that just happened. And we regret it. We're not proud of it. Why? Because what that moment represented was an unalignment of the soul and its purpose here. You went ahead and you indulged in something that you weren't supposed to. And that's why, by the way, the Gemara says, Maim gnuvim yimtaku. Stolen waters are always sweeter. Right? Stolen water is always sweeter. And so when we do things that we're not supposed to do, it tastes better. But that doesn't mean, again, that that's an expression of truth or real pleasure or happiness for that matter. It's superficial. Okay, so therefore, when you find yourselves being besimcha, that is an expression of what you truly enjoy. So think back about the things that truly bring you happiness. And what's interesting is we don't confuse pleasure with happiness. Because pleasure and happiness are not the same thing. Right? Pleasure is something that you enjoy. Happiness is an elation of the soul. We'll double click on that as we move on. Okay? So look at what these doctors say. Okay? So the Gemara says we could go ahead and listen to the Goyim. Okay, let's see what Dr. Brian Weiss and Ralph Martinson says. Happiness in life has nothing to do with what you have. It is completely dependent on your choice of perception. You choose how you want your happiness to be according to them. Oscar Wilde. Some cause happiness wherever they go, others whenever they go. Happiness is not having what you want, but wanting what you have. Okay? Jackson Brown Jr., happiness is not the absence of problems, but the ability to deal with them. People wait all week for Friday, all year for summer, all life for happiness. But they don't always get it. Brother David, by this brother David Steindl Rast, his, like people have like a doctor in front of their name. His is BR, for brother David. He says, in daily life, we must see that it is not happiness that makes us grateful, but gratefulness that makes us happy. Right? Having that hakar is a tov. Wallace D. Waddles. It is necessary then to cultivate the habit of being grateful for every good thing that comes to you and to give thanks continuously. And because all the things have contributed to your advancement, you should include all things in your gratitude. Milton Hershey. One is only happy in proportion as he makes others feel happy. In all circumstances, simcha is an expression of what you're giving. It's about an attitude, it's about a choice. And that choice is steeped in gratitude. And this is why maybe we start our day with modeh ani. You can't feel besimcha if you don't feel grateful for things that you have. If you don't wake up in the morning and say, wow, Elokai neshama shenatata bi, tehorahi. Right? If you can't say that and feel a sense of indebtedness and gratitude, every moment of life is beautiful. You can't feel besimcha. If you can't raise up the soul, if you're not connected with that inner part of who you are, the pintel yid, the part of you that yearns to do everything that is right, you won't find happiness. And worse than that, you won't find love. Because if happiness is an expression of what the soul wants, there's nothing more than the soul wants than wanting to give and to love. You understand? The simcha comes from your desire, your ability to do what the neshama wants. What does the neshama want? The neshama wants to give. It wants to be productive. It wants to be caring, loving, understanding, patient. It wants to be what you want to be in your mind's eye. And therefore, when we say, Mishenichnas Adar Marbe B'Simcha, what are we talking about? Are we talking about Achashverosh's party in Persia? Right? Let's pump it up and let's go out to Paras and go to Shushan and Shushan the Habira and have our 180-day party of endless food and wine and whatnot. Is that what it is? Because that's not simcha. Rav Dessler, as we learned the last couple of weeks, every positive emotion stems from giving and flows outward from us to others, whereas every negative emotion revolves around taking for selfish motives. Indeed, the root word for ahava, love, is hav, to give. In other words, giving leads to love. Right? And that love leads to simcha, happiness. How do we increase our love in the month of Adar? Some people say that the month of Adar is an acronym for Dar Aluf, that the Aleph, let God, if you allow a space for God to live inside of you, that is how you increase your joy. We say the pasuk says, Vasuli mikdash v'shechanti b'tocha, make me a temple, right? A sanctuary, and I will dwell in them. I will dwell in your heart. Open yourselves up. How do you do that? Well, what do? We read in the beginning of the Shabbat that opens up to the month of Adar. We read Parshat Shkalim. Why? Because you got to give the machzir shekel. What's a machzir shekel? Machzir shekel is a half a shekel. Okay, good. I give a half a shekel. You give a half a shekel. We all give half shekels. Has it lead to simcha? The simcha of machzir shekel is a reminder that we are halves. What is the true value of a shekel? 20 greirot. The word agura comes from greira, which means a half a shekel is how many greira? 10. It's the only coin that I know of in the world that its value of a half is a whole number. 10. Because even when you're a half, you're still something that is chashuv, you're still one. But two halves together make a whole, something greater, something more. Why did God create Adam and Chava as one being and not two separate beings? Why did he start them both male and female in one body and split them up? So they say in order for the guy to remember that he's searching for something. But I think more than that, it's for them to realize that if you started off with two separate beings, you put one and one together, you get two. Hashem doesn't want to. He wants echad. What is echad b'gematria? 13. What is ahava gematria? 13. What is ahava b'gematria? 13. Not an accident. The number that the goyim think is a cursed number is one of the most beloved numbers for Jews. It's v'nahabachu, it's the opposites. They think that 13 is an unlucky number. We say 13 is the greatest number because it's a reflection of godliness, God's love and unity in this world. The unity that you and I are supposed to feel with our body and soul, aligning with itself, reaching its mission through the act of love, which means giving. That's echad. The Ibn Ezra says, man lives to bestow love onto others and in turn longs to be loved. It's so beautiful. Abraham Lincoln, good old Abe. Most folks are about as happy as they make up their minds to be. Right? That is so true. It's a choice. Baal Shem Tov. Let's see what the Besht says. If you rearrange the letters of the word machshava, right, thought, it results in the word besimcha, with happiness. What's up? And this is exactly what David HaMelech meant. Ivdu et Hashem besimcha. How do you love God besimcha? It's a choice. David HaMelech wasn't being illogical. What cannot serve Hashem naturally with simcha? One needs to put his mind in the right mood to experience the veikut with Hashem. This is not always easy to do with daily challenges that we face every single day. It's hard. This is my favorite quote of the whole entire sheet, and one of my favorite quotes, I think, of the whole entire year. Rav Pam says, people are always searching for the city of happiness, but they don't realize that it is a state of mind. Can I say that again? It's so cool. People are always searching for the city of happiness, but they don't realize that it is a state of mind, meaning our thoughts that are formed in our mind affect our mood, which determines how we will respond to the situation at hand. Chavetz Chaim. Our thoughts determine our experience of Torah and mitzvot. Okay, Earl Nightingale, right, from the 18th century. We become what we think about. Our thoughts, our mind, our actions are all aligned, and therefore you choose. It's going back to the Happiness 101. We spoke about this for 14 weeks, right? That so much of your reality of simcha is an expression of the thoughts that you have. Your thoughts define and create your reality, which is what Shlomo HaMelech was saying, that speech is an expression of your choice. That's the world you live in. The Gemara in Shabbat sounds like there's a machlok over here. It says in Shabbat 30b that the divine presence rests only among the simcha, joy of the performance of the mitzvot. And then in Shabbat 92 it says that the divine presence rests only upon someone who is wealthy. Whoa, rabbis, make up your mind. Which one is it? Is it first that you dwell on the people that are b'simcha, or it is those that are wealthy? So how do we reconcile it? Yeah. Excellent. Right. So we read it backwards. That's exactly what the next Mishnah says. Ben Zoma says, Ezu Ashir, Hasameach B'chalko. They're both true. Right? It depends on how you read it. And therefore, the Gemara will make two statements, hoping that you'll finish and get to the end, and you'll work your way back to the beginning so you can get the answer. And this is exactly how Ben Zoma comes to that conclusion. Ezu Hashir, Hasameach B'chalko. That's what Hashem wants. He wants you to be b'simcha with your chelek. Oh, this is perfect. It's going to be a short class tonight. Victor Hugo. Do not educate your children to be rich. Educate them to be happy, so that when they grow up and enter the real world, they will know the value of everything in life and not just a price tag. So many people spend so much time thinking that the happiness they'll find is in whatever Bergdorf Goodman is having on sale, right? Or Bloomingdale's, whatever they say. That's well, look at that bag. That's just going for sale. That's going to be the simcha. That's not simcha. That's us chasing fictitious, illusory pleasures. You will not find simcha there, my friends. Orchat Tzadikim, number 18. A person achieves joy from an overwhelming sense of tranquility without any negative element. When someone fulfills all his desires with no source of discouragement, he will be in a continuous happy state. His face will glow, his body will be sound in health, and aging will advance at a slow pace. As Shlomo Melech said, a glad heart is as beneficial as a cure. In addition, Maral says, simcha flows from spiritual perfection. Perfection in one's sense of joy is actualized by a combination of constancy in devotion and initiation of fresh approach to the service of Hashem. If there is no newness in your avodah, if there is no new thinking about how you are developing and growing the self, you cannot find a higher level of simcha. Medrash Gadol, whoever is ungrateful for the good done by him, by his fellow, will eventually prove ungrateful for the good done unto him by Hashem. You can't find simcha or gratitude, hakarat tov, for the people around you, how are you going to see it in Hashem? Perkei Rebbe Elazar. There's nothing worse before Hashem than to be an ingrate. Similarly, if a person does not have understanding, it is forbidden to have compassion for him. What does the discipler say? Our sage is speaking over here of someone who lacks the quality of hakarat tov. We spoke about hakarat tov, right? Do you have the ability of just having the humility? Are you a machzir shekel? And stop thinking about what's owed to you, what's coming to you, what you should have received, or is it lo fair, or whatever it is that you're thinking about that should be coming your way. That type of thinking is negative thinking. It doesn't get you anywhere. The only kind of thinking that's going to be constructive is one that where you ask yourself, what am I doing for the people around me? Am I able to appreciate the good that the people have done for me? Do I see the hakarat tov from my parents? Am I able to see it in my siblings? Am I able to see it in the community that I'm in? If I'm always focusing and searching on the negative, you will never be b'simcha. And by the way, when you find people that are always complaining about the negative, stay away from them. That's not a chaver tov. That's not a shochen tov. That's someone that's someone that's dangerous. You don't want to be around people that are negative. Chaim Shmulevitz says once a person becomes accustomed to taking from others, he's in danger of feeling entitled to all that he receives, to the point that he might seek to harm someone who refuses his request. You get crazy. People who get something so much, sometimes you give something so much, and you're in trouble. Now, to love doesn't mean to give without any boundaries. To love means to create boundaries also. Because sometimes you give too much, it's also destructive. There is a happy medium in being able to give. If I give everything to my kids, I destroy my children. If I give everything to my spouse, it's not good for her. No, I'm just joking. It might be good for her. But I try to find that happy balance, right? We're always fighting about the things that hopefully draw us closer to one another. So I put together this little diagram over here. If Albert Einstein was writing an equation about happiness and love, this is what it would look like. Okay? Gratitude equals happiness, right? Now that's one. Ingratitude, right, does not equal happiness. No happiness, no ingratitude. Ingratitude equals selfishness. Selfishness equals high ego. High ego, destruction of one's soul. Right? And I want you to know this moves very quickly. It's not, step one, step two. It's like all step one, and it happens so fast. Because in our brains, there is no separation between gratitude and ingratitude, taking and loving. We all think of it all at once. It's all happening simultaneously. This is why there's wisdom with age. Not because you're smarter, it's because you've had so many mistakes. You could actually recognize the small little points along the way and say, well, I made that mistake and that mistake and that mistake and that mistake, and I don't want to do it again. But the one thing that is clear, that every single person in this room has the power of increasing their simcha. And the month that we do it in is the month of Adar. Why? Well, I can give you lots of reasons. The Gemara says that the reason why we do machzir shekel in the month of Adar is because Haman saw that Hashem saw that Haman would use the machzir shekel to destroy the Jewish people through the lottery. Right? This is an interesting idea, but I want to say something very different. Okay? There's something intrinsically special about the month of Adar. In the same way the month of Nisan was celebrated by Abraham and Yitzchak, there's something intrinsic about that time period of the year that represents freedom. There's something intrinsic about the month of Adar that represents Simcha. What is the Simcha of the month of Adar? The month of Adar represents the time where we move out of darkness, we go into light. We're leaving behind the depressing, cold winter. Hopefully it ends sooner than later. Amen. Right? There you go. And we allow ourselves to kind of like be basking in the warmth of the sun of the spring and the summer. Okay? In that space, okay, when we end up leaving our homes and engaging people in the world, okay, we're supposed to be working on developing the highest expression of the self, highest expression of the neshama. What midot are you working on today? Don't raise your hands, but how many of you are sincerely taking and tackling on something that you're working on improving? I'm not talking about getting by. Getting by does not make you happy. To be b'simcha means that you're proactively working on being b'simcha. And to be b'simcha means that you're working on perfecting your neshama. It means that you're working on creating a vision for your future and not turning back and looking forward and pushing and fighting until you make that reality your reality. You want to understand why you haven't found love? It's simple. You haven't found love yet because you haven't figured out a way of giving sincerely. Not selfishly, where you're giving so you can take. But open yourselves up to the possibility of giving unconditionally, of loving. Open yourselves up to the possibility of developing the selves so you could actually achieve higher levels of simcha, so you could draw the people of the simcha to your lives. That's what it is. That's what the month is. The month of the Adar is what's the mazal of the month of Adar? Dag, right? Pisces, right? Where are the fish? Under the water. Can the fish have ayin hara? No ayin hara. But we say v'yigdu larov. The fish are ribui. It's endless. The month of Adar is about bounty. So much so that the Arizal says as segula that if you go ahead and give tzedakah to every single person in the month of Adar, the whole month, okay, whatever you ask for Aleph Nisan, Hashem has to give it to you. And it's very simple. You say, Hashem, I gave every single person in the month of Adar what they needed. You can't give tzedakah, that's fine. You know money, say, I'm so sorry, I can't give you tzedakah. I give you a barakah that you should get all the money you need today. Hashem should bless you with, it should be easy today. Give everybody around you in the month of Adar something to be positive about. Something that uplifts them. And then in the month of Nisan, okay, in the month of miracles, you ask Hashem for the Nes to give you everything that you need to allow you to accomplish your mission. But if you're saying, Hashem, I need the shidduch for me because I want to be happy, you're missing the point. Right? Of course you should be happy. Of course you should find your shidduch. Of course you should have all those things. But in order to be someone that is able to have those things, you have to be someone that is a noten. You have to become God-like. When you become God-like in the month of Adar, you become besimcha. Okay? The act of giving the machzir shekel, giving in a humble way, creating the boundaries necessary, not unlimited money. I can't give as much as I want. I can only give 10 greirot. Right? I only have a certain amount I could give. But in that place of me having the gratitude, working on my simcha, I believe you'll find something even greater, something that we call true love. It's what we all want at our core. And what's so fascinating to me is when I think about what's happening, in the Middle East with Hamas, it's so obvious that these are people that they can't even appreciate life. For them, it's all about death because they have no idea what it means to live a life of giving. They'll put their child in front of a tank on purpose to score social media points with people. They're okay with martyring their own children because it's what they can take from. But in Israel, while it's far from perfect, they've made plenty of mistakes on this war and before the war, for sure. Right? But at the core, we know these are people that truly want to give. They love life. They're b'simcha. You know that Israel has the lowest rates of depression on the planet? That's crazy. How does that happen? Well, if your whole entire life is about working to be b'simcha, a life of loving and giving, this makes so much sense. You could be living in a country that is war-torn, and is going through the challenges and still see the silver lining at the end of it. My bracha to each of us is that as we are searching for the truest depths of love, be mindful that the way we find that is through the avodah of being besimcha, the avodah of having hakarat hatov, having the gratitude, working through the simcha, so we can allow ourselves to achieve something even much more profound, which is the art of giving unconditionally. Wishing you a Adar Sameach, and Bezrat Hashem, we'll see you all next week. Have a great night, everybody.